Imagine this, a fleet of ghost ships creeping through global waters, shrouded in rust and deception. What terror lurks beneath the waves? A shocking drone strike shattered a floating fortress far from the battlefield, unveiling secrets that could crumble empires. The salty tang of the sea mingled with the acrid scent of burning fuel as Ukrainian drones pierced the Mediterranean veil, targeting the tanker Kvendl. Here, in the shadow of Libya's coast, a high-stakes game unfolded 2,000 kilometers from Ukraine's trenches. Was Putin's war machine fueled only by crude oil, or by something deadlier? The explosion echoed across the waves, crippling the vessel and unmasking a web of espionage. Andrei Avryanov, one of Russia's elite GRU generals, perished alongside his spies. That's right, the Daily Mail reported it, a trusted intelligence chief, gone, his covert operation exposed. Rhetoric question haunting the night, why would such a powerhouse hide on a simple tanker? Dive deeper, as Europe stirs from its slumber, haunted by a nightmare of Trojan horses disguised as oil barges. Blinking away the initial shock of Kvendl's fiery demise, we uncover layers of betrayal that chill to the bone. Ukrainian intelligence unveiled a trove of secrets, proving Shadow Fleet vessels hauled far more than black gold. Sailing under false flags in the Black Sea, Baltics, and Pacific, these rusty behemoths propped up Putin's regime for years, with oil as the mask. But now, glimpses of espionage emerge offshore in the Mediterranean, where fuel depots morphed into military hubs. How did naval bases turn into spy nests? The creak of aging hulls and the faint hum of encrypted signals betrayed their true purpose. Another vessel, Borichai, mirrored this deceit. Its crew log hid Russian operatives amid non-Russian sailors. Facial scans exposed them as former Wagner mercenaries and special police, not mere techs. The stench of sabotage hung heavy, as these imposters monitored bases, shadowed captains, and plotted drone assaults. Zelensky's warnings ring true, linking these tankers to rogue UAVs buzzing over Europe. Denmark, Finland, Poland airspace breached, Copenhagen airport grounded. Was it random chaos or calculated strikes? Intelligence whispers no, revealing how shadow ships bypass Russian defenses, launching from Scots waters or French coasts. Thousands of kilometers shaved off flight paths, NATO scrambling to defend. Yet, France struck back off Brittany, boarding Borichai, arresting the commander, seizing the ship. Denmark and Britain awakened, deeming them hostile vessels laden with threats. Strikes or no, what twisted fate awaits if these phantom boats evade the noose completely? Rewind the carnage of Kvendl and the arrest in Brittany, now feel the gathering storm as countermeasures ignite. Europe's defenses sharpen, EC sanctions hitting 41 more shadow ships, for a fleet swollen to nearly 600. Ports barred, insurance shredded, maritime services denied. Without coverage, these hulks drift as outcasts, cleanup costs spiraling to millions. Breezes from the Baltics carry whispers of Danish pilots spotting uniformed Russians photographing bridges. Sweden's Admiral Haslam notes odd antennas on Baltic tankers. Non-standard for trade. Environmental peril looms too, oily slicks fouling oceans from aging, uninsured barges 70% exceeding 15 years, risk mounting. Size urges bold raids under international law, boarding for checks, exposing false flags or spy dens. Western navies could reclaim these Trojan horses, halting drone havens and espionage lairs. Nordic nations scan the seas, eyes on Baltic crossings near NATO lands like Denmark and Sweden. Deeper still, ghost ships branch into gas, offsetting lost European sales. Profit swells for Moscow at billions annually, siphoning $87 to $100 billion through illicit paths. Yet, as ships morph into military outposts, a dark twist emerges, sabotage potential targeting European skies. The grit of coastal winds mixes with distant engine roars. How long before another drone hum turns deadly? Europe's gambit escalates, but can it corner the predators before they strike anew, plunging continents into aerial turmoil? Tracing back through seized ships and exploded tankers, envision a crescendo of defiance tearing at the shadows. These phantom fleets, once mere oil smugglers under forged identities, now bear the weight of strategic nightmares, drone arsenals and spy rings cloaked in rust. Denmark and Britain, joined by fellow nations, treat them as warring hulks, weapons hidden. Ghost hunters descend upon the waves, fueled by leaked emails from Dan Pilot exposing extra Russian crew in uniforms, gazing at bridge landmarks. Sweden's vigilance spots covert tech on linked vessels. Scandinavia stands vigil against Baltic's trails bordering NATO. Yet, Russia clings on. Expanding into natural gas, revenues surging despite environmental spills and uninsured gambles. Costs to taxpayers skyrocket at $859 million to $1.6 billion, slick remnants staining shores worldwide. What bitter irony, a fleet enriching Putin while poisoning shared seas. He can't discard it, 3.7 million barrels daily sustain his realm. Sanctions evade through gray zone tricks, skirting open war. Counterplays demand beyond might legal seizures, AIS deception exposed. False pings and cloak journeys hide trails, but reforms loom. International accords could force transparency, shattering the veil. Picture the thunder of Navy hulls closing in, sense of burning oil fade as justice nears. But hiccups arise, weak enforcement lets some slip. Can Europe endure if ghosts persist, lobbing digital daggers from afar? One misstep, and skies shatter in electronic hail. Rebuilding from cautionary raids in Nordic waters, ponder a turning point where oil empires falter. Sanctions pile high, yet Russian resolve holds shadow vessels unaltered, 65% of maritime exports pulsing forth. Pennyworth of profits fuel defenses, yet crevices widen in their armor. Ukraine's strike on Kvendel ignited awareness, Avryanov's loss a hammer blow. Crowd out the spies on board Borichai, betrayed by their own muskets, former privates turned saboteurs. Region under fire, Baltics to Med, dangers multiply. NATO hustles, Navy's raiding. France's bold catch mocks the regime, technicians' guys rent asunder. Danish scrutiny, Swedish probes, antennas and masts ring alarms. Uninsured cargoes drown oceans, liabilities thrusting billions on innocents. Voices call for aggressive law enforcement, boarding under false flag skies. International might reclaim these beasts, curbing drone fears. Gas expansions plug gaps from lost pipes. But tactical flaws emerge, Russia's dilemma, fleet as lifeline. Without it, warships starve. Spillage stains seas, specter of global bills. Gray warfare persists, sanctions dodged. Time presses, reforms to enforce position sharing, fleet integrity. Seas change? Verdant winds defy oily scourge. But lingering hazards persist, drones poised, espionage active. Twist, Putin fortified yet, revenues shield him. What havoc if one launch hits home? Threat mounts, Europa braces. Circling back to seized vessels and spied out secrets, feel the crescendo of resistance cracking through. UK's and Denmark's Iron Lance place these rogues as targets, potential war machines. Leaks from Dan pilot unveil Russians in cam, snapping decks. Sweden's Eagle Eye catches Russian-linked ship anomalies. Scandinavian shorelines locked on Baltic's traffic. Sanctions clamp, ensuring banned, fleet hits 600, barred docks. Uninsured risks bill $859 million to $1.6 billion, slicks fouling waves. Advocates raid boldly. Western fleets could seize on evidence. Gas trade swells, offsetting exports drop. Moscow's gain, $87 billion to $100 billion yearly, fleet vital. Yet, purity suffers oiled coasts, aged haulers, 72% over 15 years. Gray tactics outweat sanctions, skirting battles. Counter needs nuance, legal tools anew. AIS rules tighten, IDs no longer fudged. Positions broadcast, obscurity lifted. Shots fired? Potential drone barrages fade. But persistence reigns, Putin unrestrained, benefits guard. Environmental scourge grows. Twist unfolds, bolder raids could decapitate, isolating ships. But enforcement wavers, escapes happen. Endgame nears if probes intensify. Can shadows dissolve before stealth strikes erupt? Mystery deepens, tensions rise. Recent investigations by CNN have uncovered alarming truths about Russia's shadow fleet. These ships aren't just smuggling oil, they're secret military operatives in motion. Western and Ukrainian intelligence confirm that armed personnel are embedded on these vessels. The case of the Borichai tanker illustrates this clearly. Its crew mostly includes foreign sailors, but beneath the surface are two Russian individuals initially labeled as technicians. Facial recognition revealed they are former Wagner mercenaries and Russian special police officers, not mere technicians. How similar are these operatives to those on the Quendel? While most believed this ship carried only oil, the shocking truth emerged: one of Russia's top military officials, a general from the GRU, was aboard alongside Wagner members. Why are these mercenaries and officers on a tanker? The answer points to espionage, monitoring European naval bases, tracking ships, and, crucially, deploying drones. Yes, the Shadow Fleet's most terrifying capability is its ability to launch unmanned aerial vehicles toward European cities. A few months ago, President Zelensky issued a chilling warning: Russia is controlling UAVs from Shadow Fleet tankers. These drones have been spotted over Denmark, Finland, Poland, Romania, and even the Netherlands. When the Boracay passed near Copenhagen Airport, air traffic halted amid drone activity. Could this be mere coincidence? Western intelligence emphatically says no. Instead of risking flight over thousands of kilometers, Russia is sailing tankers just 20 kilometers off the coast of nations like Scotland or France. From there, they launch UAVs, an invisible threat bypassing air defenses entirely. This tactic transforms supply ships into floating missile launch pads. A dangerous game. An escalation that could rapidly turn regional conflicts into a European nightmare. How long before a drone strike targets a major city? And what measures can stop a fleet that hides behind false flags and concealed identities? The answers remain uncertain, but one thing is clear: the Shadow Fleet isn't just smuggling oil anymore, it's weaponizing the seas itself. Previous part summary: experience shows that Russia's Shadow Fleet can bypass air defenses by sailing close to European coasts. Instead of drone flights over land, they launch UAVs from ships near strategic areas. This stealthy approach shifts danger from the air to the sea, leaving NATO and European countries feeling vulnerable and unprepared. Now, the reality is even more alarming. These vessels pose an unprecedented threat that could challenge NATO's entire defense system. The French Navy recently intercepted the Boracay off Brittany. What they found was shocking: a Russian technician, disguised as crew, was caught photographing critical military sites. The captain was immediately detained, and the ship was seized. This aggressive response sent a clear message: these vessels are no longer benign traders but potential military platforms. Europe's authorities are awakening to this new danger. Surprisingly, sanctions swiftly followed. The European Union blacklisted an additional 41 ships of this Shadow Fleet. Now, nearly 600 vessels are blocked from entering EU ports. They are barred from maritime services like insurance and banking transactions. These ships are effectively invisible, slipping through the cracks of international law. Without insurance, their movements become hidden, mysterious ghost ships moving into forbidden waters. Their behavior is increasingly unpredictable, making them a lurking threat that cannot be ignored. But sanctions alone are not enough to combat this creeping menace. The Center for Strategic and International Studies urges a more forceful approach. What if these ships could be stopped directly at sea? Using international laws, Western naval forces might board suspect vessels for inspections or suspicion of not belonging to any nation. Discovering drone control stations or a high-ranking military officer on board would be a game-changer. Then the ship could be seized, just like pirates of old. This is a strategic shift, modern piracy with high stakes. Such actions could prevent Russia from using these vessels as floating military bases, extending their control far beyond simple oil smuggling. The idea of removing these ships from the water entirely is gaining momentum, as NATO and European countries prepare for the worst. The question remains: how long can they keep hiding in plain sight before the Shadow Fleet's secrets are completely uncovered and the ultimate threat is revealed? Recent intelligence reveals that Europe's northern waters are under increasing threat from Russia's Shadow Fleet. Countries like Denmark and Sweden closely monitor these vessels passing through the Baltic Sea, borders shared with NATO allies. Despite their vigilance, signs of infiltration persist. Danish pilots, responsible for navigating these treacherous waters, report suspicious crew changes, sometimes non-Russian sailors suddenly replaced by individuals with military uniforms in espionage roles. One seasoned officer, Caesar Skinnerup, recounted personal encounters with vessels whose crews were largely non-Russian, yet mysteriously included Russian personnel. In July, Denmark's emergency services warned that extra crew members, possibly military operatives, were photographing sensitive bridge areas. These men wore uniforms and displayed behaviors indicating espionage. Similar patterns emerged in Sweden, where some ships carried antennas and masts not typical for commercial vessels, raising suspicion about covert operations. What's clear is that the Russian regime's ability to leverage these ships as pressure tools is waning. Once used to exert influence, these vessels now risk exposure, potentially revealing secret missions aiming at European security. The question is, what's their true purpose? Recent activities signal a shift from economic smuggling to clandestine intelligence operations. This shadow fleet isn't merely transporting oil anymore, it's become a mobile espionage network, spying on NATO bases, tracking ships, even covertly launching drones. Could these vessels soon switch from quiet observer to active aggressor? With each passing day, their activities grow bolder, raising fears that key European airspace and naval installations are vulnerable. The hidden fleet's expansion signals that Russia's covert strategy is evolving, masking military intent behind the guise of commercial shipping. As these ships slip through naval defenses, the landscape of European security hangs in the balance. In the depths of these vessels lies a critical question: are they just smuggling oil, or are they preparing for a shadow war that could ignite tensions across the continent? The risks are palpable. If these covert operations come to light, the consequences for Kremlin's influence and global stability could be devastating. The Russian shadow fleet continues to grow stronger, defying expectations. Instead of shrinking, it's expanding its reach, moving more than ever. It's estimated these vessels deliver around 3.7 million barrels of oil daily, about 65% of all Russia's maritime oil trade. That's roughly $87 to $100 billion a year. Losing this source would hit Moscow hard, but at what cost? This clandestine fleet isn't just about fuel. It also carries natural gas, trying to replace declining European exports. But beneath these strategic moves lie serious risks. These ships threaten global safety and the environment. Many are over 15 years old, constantly breaking down. Surprisingly, 60% are not insured, making cleanup efforts expensive. When an oil spill occurs, costs could soar beyond $1.6 billion, an unbearable burden for coastal nations and taxpayers worldwide. What makes this even more alarming? These vessels are part of a covert operational web. Russia uses them for espionage, sabotage, and possibly targeting Western cities with drones. They slip past sanctions, skirting traditional restrictions through indirect methods. Ships broadcast false signals and turn off tracking systems, blending into the chaos of the high seas. What secret missions are hidden behind these drifting shadows? Historically, nations used piracy and trade raids to break blockades. Today's strategy, however, is subtler. It's a gray zone, avoiding full-scale conflict but threatening national security and environmental integrity. As these ghost ships continue their journeys, the world's eyes are finally opening. The question remains, how can the West stop a fleet that operates in the shadows, fueling conflict and chaos while hiding behind falsified identities? The Russian shadow fleet operates in a murky zone, avoiding direct combat but carrying out covert missions. It's like an invisible army hidden behind false flags, silent and secret. These vessels don't follow the usual rules, they broadcast their locations using automated signals, but often turn them off or fake their identities entirely. Can anyone truly trust what these ships are telling us? Unlike traditional patrols, these ships rarely reveal themselves willingly. They hide behind false flags, turn off their identification systems, and falsify their positions. Their true purpose remains shrouded in darkness. The United States and allies are exploring legal strategies to pierce this veil, perhaps by targeting ships for inspection based on flag publication rights during open sea operations. But how can they catch these elusive vessels? Uncovering and dismantling this shadow network demands precise intelligence and coordinated efforts. It's not enough to watch the ships, authorities must also scrutinize the entire web supporting them: oil production sites, natural gas terminals, transportation hubs, and export ports. All these nodes create a complex, interconnected system fueling Russia's covert operations. Satellite images, open-source investigation tools, and historical travel data become indispensable weapons in this silent war. Every piece of data, every route, stopover, or suspicious transfer can unlock the secrets of this hidden fleet. Tracking patterns before and after conflicts can reveal how these ships adapt and evade detection. The question remains, how long can this shadow empire continue to sail unnoticed? For now, Western intelligence agencies are racing against time to identify, challenge, and ultimately destroy this ghostly fleet lurking in the maritime shadows. The journey of the Russian shadow fleet reveals a web of deception, espionage, and strategic piracy that threatens global stability. It's a story shrouded in mystery, where rusty ships hide deadly secrets beneath false flags, sailing through international waters with concealed motives. But what if these ships are more than just oil carriers? What if they are floating bases for covert operations that could ignite a new regional conflict? Imagine a fleet that isn't just about fuel. These vessels, often passing as innocent merchants, are actually mobile command centers. They hide military cargo, deploy spy agents, and even launch unmanned drones toward European cities. The recent sinking of a tanker in the Mediterranean named Quendel exposed a shocking reality. High-ranking Russian officials were on board, suggesting this was no ordinary ship. It was a Trojan horse, a vessel designed for espionage and sabotage. This attack has shaken Europe to its core. The loss of the tanker and the exposure of senior intelligence officials revealed a far darker layer, one where the shadow fleet operates beyond mere smuggling, actively spying, sabotaging, and potentially attacking targets across the continent. Reports confirm that Russian spies are embedded among the crew, disguised as ordinary sailors, but in reality, they serve as covert agents monitoring NATO bases and European defenses. Could these vessels be preparing to strike from the shadows? The most alarming element is their ability to launch unmanned aerial vehicles near European shores, bypassing traditional defenses. Recent drone sightings over Denmark and Finland generate a chilling question: are these ships controlling airborne attacks that could target major cities? Navy patrols recently intercepted one such vessel near Brittany, seizing its captain and uncovering Russian technicians on board, an outright declaration that these ships are not just cargo carriers but floating military hubs. In response, Western nations are escalating their measures. Italy, France, and the United Kingdom no longer see these ships as benign merchants. The European Union has sanctioned over 600 vessels tied to this shadow fleet, blocking their access to ports and financial services. But sanctions alone aren't enough to contain this hidden threat. Experts push for aggressive tactics: boardings, inspections, even seizure of suspicious vessels, akin to combating modern piracy. Yet, the true scope of this covert war is even more staggering. Detailed intelligence reveals that ships like the Boracay often have crews composed mainly of non-Russian sailors, with a few Russian technicians. Facial recognition identifies some as former mercenaries and special police officers, indicating a deliberate deployment of professional operatives for spying and drone launching missions. If onboard personnel include military specialists, then each ship is a potential drone base, capable of launching attacks across European skies. The stakes have skyrocketed. Russian officials boldly warn of unmanned drones attacking NATO cities using these supply vessels. The vessels sail just tens of kilometers off the coast, in waters where no one expects hostile activity. The potential for catastrophe is immense. Imagine an ocean vessel turning into a missile launcher, its cargo hidden beneath the guise of legal commerce. Can NATO and European allies prevent this nightmare from unfolding? Recent operations by the French Navy and other allies have begun to peel back the layers of secrecy. Seizing ships, arresting crews, these are direct challenges to Moscow's covert network. Meanwhile, diplomatic pressure mounts. The European Union expands sanctions, blocking hundreds of ships from entering ports and making it practically impossible for the shadow fleet to operate freely. These vessels, once invisible threats, are now cornered. But the fight is far from over. Intelligence agencies propose sweeping legal actions: boardings for suspicion of espionage, inspecting ships suspected of harboring military operations. By doing so, they aim to dismantle Putin's floating war bases before the situation spirals out of control. With every intercepted vessel, the clandestine plans become clearer. These ships aren't just supporting the economy, they're supporting warfare from the depths of the sea. The true power of this shadow fleet lies in its ability to evade detection, concealed behind false data signals and turned-off tracking devices. Yet, with improved satellite imagery and intelligence sharing, the curtain is gradually lifting. Certain NATO countries are considering bold measures, including more aggressive patrols and even outright interdictions. If the routes of these vessels are fully cut off, the Kremlin's ability to carry out covert operations and sustain its war effort in Ukraine could be severely crippled. The stakes are enormous. If these vessels are stopped, if their secret missions are exposed and eliminated, the flow of illegal oil, Russia's lifeline, will dry up. This could spell the end of Moscow's covert operations at sea. But more than that, it might mark the beginning of a new phase in the struggle for regional stability, one where unseen threats become visible, and the Shadow Fleet's dark chapter is finally closed. Will diplomacy succeed, or will the sea darken further with hidden threats waiting in the depths? Putin's secret fleet is sinking in the icy depths of global waters. Russia's dwindling financial reserves can no longer bankroll the war effort. As this covert operation extends into zones like Operation Nero, the leader may finally face the pressing need for peace. Yet, Ukraine's relentless assaults threaten to dismantle these shadow ships one by one. Now, the Kremlin stands at a crossroads. Should they continue risking deadly minefields, navigating treacherous open seas with these ghostly vessels? Or should they abandon them entirely, giving up the very backbone of their clandestine war machine? The choice could seal Russia's fate at sea and determine Putin's next move in this dangerous game. What are your thoughts? Will they persist in this perilous maritime dance, or will they finally surrender? The outcome could reshape the future of global conflict itself. Stay tuned, because the ocean's darkest secrets are about to surface. Nothing will stay hidden for long.